Righto.
Recording in progress. Welcome back to the Looseheads Sports Show, the #1 sports show on planet Earth. Brought to you by Caffeine Gum Australia. If you don't chew Caffeine Gum Australia, fuck you. Jed Gillespie, working class man, with me as always. And Mr. Jed Holloway, how are you, buddy?
I'm well, thank you. Best and second best Jed on planet Earth.
What was it like for you walking back in? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Because you, I hope you don't mind me saying this, you kind of left. You might not have been the happiest when you left. I think that's reasonable to say. Yeah. And then obviously coming back in, I know I spoke to you offline and you're pretty excited about it. But what was it? What did it feel like walking back into the joint?
It was weird, man. It was weird because definitely when I left, I was quite certain that I wouldn't be back again. And then to find myself, a year and a bit later, going back in, I was quite nervous. I was quite nervous about, if things were just going to be the same and if not. But as soon as I walk into the building, it just felt different. Boys were cooking barbecues and playing music out on the balcony. There's photos of the history of the Tars all around the building.
Was that not there before? Was that different to before?
Yeah. So it was cool, man. It's very exciting. It's very exciting to be back, and it's very exciting to be part of trying to build, a new culture that DC wants to bring in. You're familiar with him and familiar with how hard he pushes that stuff, and it's very refreshing.
Mate, I've got a. Sorry, you go, Gillespie. I've got a question. I've got a question after. I got a serious question.
No, this is a serious question as well. There's been a massive rollover, like since you left you said like a year and a half ago, roughly. But in terms of players and coaches and whatnot, I mean, are there many guys left? Really? I mean, it's somewhat a completely different team from the one you left, particularly on the administrative side.
Yeah. Well, the whole admin staff has been moved on themselves. Yeah. The physio staff have all changed. The doctors changed. The only one fucking lasting, and you can't get rid of him, is Terry Woodward. He's a part of the furniture in that place, but he does a great job. But even the players, like the boys I'm, grew up playing with, like Alex Newsom, Jake Gordon, Swinner, they're still there. But as you said, I reckon a good 50 or 60% of the squad is completely new. And then you got young guys coming up and through who I didn't really meet or didn't know before from Gen Blue.
Chubby?
I was just going to say, mate, DC did a presentation a couple of weekends ago at this level 3 course, and I know he listens to these podcasts, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, is that my first impression of DC was not a great one. I thought he was a good coach, but I think with the country stuff, it was probably his first serious job back in professional rugby after when he was first the Waratahs coach years ago. And my impression of him wasn't a good one to start with. But talking to him and hearing what he had to say the couple of weekends ago and the stuff that he's playing with the Tars, I was like quite impressed by how much he's almost seemed to relax and to come into himself as a human being and to be more comfortable in that kind of role. Has that been, I mean, obviously without, going into it too much, you've had experiences in the past. Is that what you've seen as well coming back in?
Yeah, well, I think he'll tell people openly, like me and him, he always rated me as a football player, but the 1 year I had with the Eagles in 2018, we didn't go well. And, I wasn't, I was a bit off NRC. I was bouncing around positions and stuff like that. So I had a bit of a attitude, and this is a big pro NRC show, which I've been hearing all along this trip. But yeah, mate, see his growth. And I don't know if he was always like this or what, but I think maybe the Giltinis, like winning that with the amount of experienced guys and learning from guys like that, like he was just he seems to be ticking every single box in my regard, and I'm not just saying that so he tries to pick me, but like, man, he's been so impressive since he's come into the Tars fold on every single note, like really personable, building the culture, really detailed with his footy, making sure, you know, there's no stone unturned, and just staying on everything. Like, you know, you see some coaches who are out on the field, but they're never in the gym, mate. DC's everywhere, and he's coming into the gym, checking on guys' gym scores, keeping guys accountable, making sure he reads out that like when we sit down and have meetings, so guys stay competitive and stay hungry. It has been really impressive, mate, and it's you know, props to him, because, you know, he's been waiting in the wings to try get this job, and he's killing it so far in my books.
I think Gillespie and I have talked about this before, but I think it's one of the smartest things the Tars have done signing him, because the Waratahs should have this inbuilt supporter base in the Shoot Shield, and I think I can definitely speak for Gillespie, is that a lot of Tars supporters have been quite disillusioned in the past because of people coming in from overseas, and, you know, some local players not being given an opportunity. But now they've given a guy who is one of our own an opportunity at the top job. I mean, and he well and truly deserves it. So I think that a lot of the Shoot Shield community is probably going to get more behind the Tars, and I think while it is a young team, and I think if they'd have continued to go the way they were going, you would have lost a lot more people. But I think people are going to give the Tars a chance this year. There's no real question in that, but it's just me ranting off the top of my head. But can you feel that? Can you see that?
Yeah, I think so. He's homegrown, mate, and he's you know, he's just a straight shooter as well, and it gives like a bit of a blue collar. Tars have been known as like the latte drinkers from Bondi and stuff like that, and DC gives them a real blue collar mentality, and that attracts people. And seeing his progressions through the Shoot Shield and seeing what he's done there, I feel it'll only, you know, mend that gap between the Waratahs and club rugby a little bit, and hopefully get a few more bums on seats.
Absolutely.
Is there much mention like around the squad? Obviously, last year wasn't a good year. Is there talk of last year, or is it like last year's gone, or is it like we're going to, like, what's the approach to it? Particularly you coming in, you weren't part of it, but is it acknowledging it? Is it ignoring it? What is it?
I think I come in probably 4 weeks or 5 weeks into the preseason, so I think they went through a month of like resetting the culture or rebuilding the culture, like acknowledging last year and, you know, letting that go and then building up with something new. So I may have missed that piece, but since I've been in, there's been no chat of last year. It's just been what we can do moving forward, and
onwards and upwards sort of thing.
What's that?
Onwards and upwards sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Man, I was really impressed with the presentation he gave about what he's like, the actual process that he's going through to try and change the culture. I don't know if he'd want me to say it publicly, but at the moment there's like a lot of toughening up, and there's rebuilding confidence, and there's some actual real thought that's gone into what you guys are doing, which I found pretty impressive.
Well, it's made me think, like, you never really know what the perfect formula is to build a culture, eh? Like, have you guys, obviously in the coaching department, have you just taken that on, or have you applied any of that to, because, you know, I know you talk about Broncos and beers, and I don't know if you, Jed, have any, but I think there is a good mix just as a player of like fucking hard work where you're ripping into each other, but then also learning about one another off the field as well. And it's a line that's not always walked the best way, you know.
It's hard. It's hard professionally. I mean, I've found, because it's, you know, it becomes a job inevitably. You know, like, it is your income. It's what you do. So some guys want to punch the ticket. and like go in, train, get out of there. Like it's a little bit harder to not make them, but for people to buy in and be like, yeah, fuck, Jed, what are you about? Like where you from? Where'd you play your footy? Like you are spending every day on top of each other, but some guys, particularly in Sydney, like if they're from Sydney, they punch a ticket, they get out of there. Whereas when you're overseas and you're trapped in a little town with people, you sort of tighten up. But there definitely is a mix. It's probably something Eastwood in sort of recent years hasn't got right. It's been too much work, not enough play.
Well, I think that's probably more to do with COVID than anything, because you couldn't really have the play as well. But just on that, Jed, remember when like you and I went through that relatively successful era at South, apart from Gillespie knocking us over a few times, but we never worked really hard, to be fair. But we had some fun off field, and we're all very close, and that was the real key to us winning a lot of games. But we didn't have the hard work part, so we didn't really win when it mattered. And I think getting that balance between working hard, playing hard, giving a huge fuck about the team you're playing for, and that's probably the key ingredient to actually getting that inevitable success. Like Gillespie, the teams you played in were very close friends. You're still friends with those guys today. You could tell that you loved playing with each other and playing for each other. So to me, that's culture. That's a really good culture. And at South, like we're all of our area are still really close, Jed, because we had a lot of fun together, but we never worked hard, in my opinion.
Mate, 100%.
Me particularly.
When I asked you that, like that's what I was thinking about, like taking back to 2014. We like went 8-8, I think that year. We just snuck into the finals at 6, and then we just went on a run in the finals. And then when in the spot when it really mattered, like I think the lack of work that we really put in as a group was the most evident thing in that grand final. Because I don't know if we did it, if you can remember anything, but we didn't like go into that game with any new plays. I think we were just so happy with the way we were going. We didn't want to change up too much, and we were just like kind of stoked to be there. And that's one of my biggest career learnings is because that stings me. I still haven't watched that game back.
Seeing Gillespie happy at the end of that, just to this day, destroys me.
I'm very rarely happy. So you've got to give me something. I wasn't to know we'd go again, but it was. Yeah, I think I was so young. I mean, me and Holloway are the same age. Chubby's 40-something, but we were so young that like I didn't think about it that much at the time. Holloway, I don't know. We were only 21, so I just thought it happened all the time, and it didn't. That was the tough thing. It did, you play another 10 years and you don't make one, or you make one more. So
can I give you some insight to that game, which only very few people know? Chubby wouldn't even know. But building up to that week, I found me and Roach went for a drive, and Roach left Eastwood lineouts like on the floor of his car. I was just sitting there while he was driving, just reading it. But
it didn't make a difference.
It didn't make any difference. But like, I thought it was like going in that week. I was like, "Fuck, that's such a leverage." Like I've just, saw his lineouts, but I couldn't understand anything it meant anyway. But that's just the great Hugh Roach,
Jeez, I've been talking to him a bit this week. He's been interesting this week. We got to get him on the podcast.
He'll be on.
When he doesn't know it's a podcast, so we can see the real Hugh Roach, because I think that would be unbelievable viewing.
May I just peel back the curtain? So that was probably, back to Holloway's should shield point, that was probably one of the that I did not know that, and that is truly concerning from an Eastwood perspective. Not surprising, but concerning. Now, probably played, in my opinion, you've played too much shoot shield. There's no secret that when you were sort of the last couple of years at the Tars, I think you should have been fucking playing every week. Looking back at sort of 2013, 14 now, I always look back at it and think the teams were better. Overall, I think the teams were better. But, on the other side of the argument, it's just, you always look back thinking that it was better than it was, when now it's just as good. What do you think the comps got standard-wise worse over time or over the last sort of 10 years? That can go to both of you.
Super Rugby.
No, it's the Shoot Shield.
Oh,
Do you want me to go first?
there you go.
I think when I first started playing in 2008, you would regularly come across Super Rugby front rowers every week because every franchise flew back in their guys who weren't playing in Super Rugby that week. So you'd have a lot of Super Rugby level players running around. And these were in the days where professional players were only going overseas at the end of their career. So you had all the good guys still in Australia. So in my opinion, between 2008 and 2012 was probably when the competition had the highest level players there. But the standards in terms of the professionalism, the training, the off-field stuff has improved significantly since 2014. Not one team would have GPS their squad in 2014, apart from maybe Sydney Uni. I think that might be a fair assumption. Did you guys, Jed?
Do you think that's improved the rugby though?
No, I don't. I don't think the rugby's as good as it was then, but I think the standards have improved in terms of coaching and the actual professionalism of the competition. In terms of the actual players themselves, I don't think it's as good as it was.
It came up on an NRC bus trip around 2000. The comp we don't name around 2017, and someone said, "Mate, City Uni 2011 would put 100 points on the team that won that year," and the young guys were horrifically offended. And,
I agree with that,
but I don't think you can deny that, really. I mean, it's all contextual. What you said is true. Like, we train more now. Fuck, if we trained 3 nights in 2014, I would have had a heart attack.
Oh, they would have been hell to pay.
Mate, some of the old guys, including Batcher, he doesn't listen, but if he did listen, he would have fucking rolling over in his Dating in the Dark episode. But, you know, now that's what's expected. You've got to do the off-field stuff. You're cutting up lots of film. That side has got better. I just don't think the cattle is what it was. People are just shooting off to get a quick yen or to get a quick fucking euro, and that's just the way it is.
I think that's more of the issue than the standard. I think, you know, people are seeing that not everyone wants to play for the Tars anymore. Not everyone wants to follow that path and really stick it out and shoot shield to try and make the Tars or whatever other club. I think there's opportunities arising in Japan or overseas where
Major League.
Yeah, Major League, exactly.
France.
Where guys can go make, you know, decent rugby and decent money rugby. And they take that opportunity. Like, I was talking to Raboni about it the other day, Chubb.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't really get many offers, and he got a really good offer in Japan to set up his family and to look after all of them. And, you know, one of my biggest career regrets is around like 2014. And I talked to Hoylesy, and I wasn't really getting picked, but I was playing well at shoot shield level. He's like, "Mate, you should just go overseas for a couple of years, get in front in life, come back 26, and then like get back in the system." Like, he's like, "Because you'll be able to do it." And I'm like, looking back now, like, it would have been nice in hindsight. But
it's fucking hard to look back in like that. I recall being in a meeting during my cup of coffee in Melbourne, and your name was in a folder down there. Were you chatting with them for a while?
I was chatting with them. Was that during Tony McGann? Was that around that time?
Correct.
Yeah. So I was close. End of 2015, I think it was.
Yeah, like I was literally in a meeting, probably being sacked, and there was a little Jed Holloway folder on the desktop, and I just thought, I know that person.
Yeah. So that was after basically, you know, checks last year. I was off contract as well, and I was like really close to signing with the Melbourne Rebels. I basically was sitting down with Daryl Gibson to tell him that I wasn't going to stay at the Tars anymore, and then we just had a really good open heart-to-heart chat, and then I ended up staying at the Tars. And it was that next year is when I had my really good year in 2016. So, yeah, what could have been, eh?
Yeah. I got a follow-up then. What, like, obviously life's changed a bit since I last saw you. You got a family now. Things are different. What was the motivation to come back to the Tars? Is it a gold jersey, or is it being closer to your family? I know, like, you've been away, you're a big family guy. What's the go?
It's a good question. As much as I want to say, like, it's playing for the Wallabies, in some regard, I feel like that's not a possibility just because of my age. But what really motivates me is I wasn't happy with the way I left the Tars. Reflecting back on it and stuff like that, I left quite bitterly, and my mum's message on Facebook and
she's banned from the Waratahs account.
Yeah, but all that crap that sort of transpired throughout that period, and it's not how I wanted to be seen leaving that place, because I played, this will be my 9th year there now, and I think going to Japan and as you mentioned, the culture that can be possibly built at a place like the Tars, like we had such a good foreigners group there, and we had some like big names in our crew with us, but like we just got so tight and got around each other and stuff like that. And me and Hoops had long chats. It's like, how can we develop this culture in Sydney? And Sydney's a fucking busy place. Like, everyone's got schoolmates and everyone wants living their own life. So it's like that challenge kind of got put in my head, and me and him had long discussions about that. Then he asked me the question if I'd ever come back, and I was like, I would, but I don't think it's a possibility. I think I burnt that bridge. And then when it come to fruition, I was like, fuck, rightio. Once it was a real possibility, because MLR, like, my Mrs. American, staying there with her family as well, like that would have been a real possibility as well. But I think the option to come home and try build something new with DC is a really exciting prospect.
Yeah, go Shelby. Otherwise,
what was it like? What was it like meeting your daughter for the first time?
It was one of the coolest feelings, but also I was so nervous because I didn't know how to hold a fucking baby or talk to a baby or anything. Because, like, when you first hold a baby for the first time, you're like, you don't know what to say to it. Now with her, it's just like I'd sit there talking to her all day. But when you first do it, you're just sitting there looking at her, just going like, how the hell is this thing mine? Like, how did I create this? And it's a weird feeling, but one of the most fulfilling things for sure.
Well, I was saying to Kate when Kaylee posted that video, which fucking great video, by the way, but you've had a really weird experience. Like, you were in Japan. Were you on FaceTime while the whole thing happened?
So I got a message at 8 o'clock last night saying my water's broken and stuff like that. So I started to freak out. And then, so I start calling my parents, and they're like, nothing will happen for 24 hours. Go back to sleep. And I'm
How
like,
could you fucking sleep after that?
Fucking no chance that I'm sleeping now.
No way.
So I think I actually got into some of your caffeine gum and was like, I'm just going to ride this thing out, and just had a caffeine gum bender. Anyway, I was going back and forth with Kaylee and stuff like that. And when shit starts happening at the hospital, I start talking to her mum, and her mum's like, oh, I'll FaceTime you in and stuff like that. But the doctors are stressing. And I'm like, just honestly, just make sure Kaylee's looked after and FaceTime me as soon as you can. Anyway, I just get a message like at 4 a.m. We have a baby. I was like, what the fuck? Like, it kind of went quiet there for a little bit. And then once I started FaceTiming in again, it was a crazy experience. Like,
what did you do? Because you're on your own in Japan, you just had like a huge event in your life, and like, did you have a beer? Like, did you go to training? Like, what was going through your head then?
Well, because I I got injured in Japan, and then I was lucky enough my company let me go to America for a week, right? So I
It was like a month before, wasn't it?
because I'd missed the whole pregnancy, right? And so I was like, I need to go see her just to whatever. And then flew to America, we hung out. She's like, it's not coming for another month. So I was like, all right, we got a month, we can do this. Radio, I'll be back, miss a week of whatever. Anyway, while I'm in quarantine in Japan, I get that message. So even if I could go anywhere, I couldn't. Like,
you're fucked. You're fucked.
I was locked down, and I had a feeling like, I'm like, this is fucking gonna happen. I'm gonna get back to Japan, and I'm gonna be stuck there. And when something will happen, like I can't go anywhere. So yeah, I think maybe I think I enjoyed something, but drinking, you sit there and have a beer, and then you're like, man, I'm by myself. What am I going to do now? But that was like the biggest cabin fever, because I did want to go celebrate and I did want to go out and do some things, but I just couldn't because I didn't want to get in trouble. Already done 4 bouts of isolation before that, so I didn't want to do any more.
Mate, I reckon that would be a crazy life experience, man. Like, particularly the last year of your life, having COVID, everything that's gone on in between. I can only imagine that's been crazy.
Yeah, man. Me and Katie talk about it all the time, just how wild the last year and a bit of our lives are. Like getting married, then her going to America a week after we get married, then her getting basically locked out of Japan and unable to come over, and going through pregnancy by herself. Like, she's a tough one for sure, and it's definitely hasn't been the smoothest of rides, but hopefully a bit of stability and stuff like that will bring better things.
Gillespie, something.
Insane. Well, I'm taking it in. This is foreign to me, and it's foreign to you.
It's like deep stuff. It's not stuff we usually.
No, I understand deep stuff. I think deeply, regularly. I have another rugby question. As much as I can talk about. 2010, we're in the same schoolboys team.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun. The question's not related to that. I just wanted to point that out. I used to be good. Fuck you.
Do you remember? Do you remember gambling in Samoa? Like when we went to Samoa, you were telling the story about when you got punched in the head. I think I was playing blindside flank when that happened. That was fucking hilarious.
Well, sort of. Look,
wish I saw that.
We played this form of poker all Samoa. Look, there wasn't much to do with Samoa. Shout out to my Samoan friends, but look, there's not a lot happening there. So we started gambling heavily, of course. We, as a team, then people were accruing debts. Steve Cummins might have accrued one. I don't know. And then the manager would have to drive them into town to an ATM to pull out 40 billion tala to pay off the debt they'd lost. So we were banned from gambling by the end of that week, but it was fun. Now, that wasn't the point. The point was, around 2012, you changed. Your whole body type changed, speed changed, strength changed. What went on there? I mean, you're a second rower on Schoolboys Tour, genuine second rower, not overly fast, good ball skills. But then 2012, 13, you were the fastest man on the fucking planet. So I seem to remember you being gym partners with John Ulugia.
Yeah.
Did that? What was the crossover there? Because you drank some sort of fucking water and became superhuman.
Look, honestly, like before that, I never lifted weights until, because I was fucking in Yamba, man. I never made a rep team until I was 17, and then I got told, if you're going to make Australian schoolboys, like you got potential, you need to be in Sydney. So I went to Waverley for 3 terms.
They were right.
And then ended up making, the Australian schoolboys team. But like, so I had a lot of physical development to go. And then living with fucking Gibbo and stuff like that, like those psychopaths, like love to squat and do everything. So we used to just train like, we had nothing on. Like I can't even remember what I was doing at that age, but we just used to lift all the time every afternoon, just go in the gym and lift weights. And then we played Colts. And then once I got signed, then we were lifting with Johnny Aluja and like stuff like that and just pushing ourselves. But honestly, I just seriously think I just had a lot of physical development to go.
And you're a bit older.
I didn't hit puberty till I was like 17, which is crazy.
Yeah, I was like 11, so that's why I did mine in reverse. But I just remember I was in the academy 1 year after you, and you'd sort of gone up, and you were just like, you had the fucking squat record and stuff, and I was like, what on earth is going on here? What have I missed? Like I'd had a schooner and missed you becoming the strongest man alive, and all of a sudden you were really, really fast. Like, was it nice to be fast all of a sudden?
Had to have been.
Yeah, seriously.
It was nice to be fast for sure. But yeah, I just think, like, I don't know, like they talk about farm strength and stuff like that. Like it was literally like with a deadlift record and stuff like that. What I hated when I first went to the TARS, like they wanted to bring the young guys through slowly. And because I'd been squatting with Gibbo and they like to throw a bit on the bar, well, back then they did. But they had me on like 80 kilos squat for 10 reps. I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. I can go more. And Luigi and that were doing like 140 for 10 reps. So then one day I just jumped in with them and S&C was like, you got a bit of strength. And they used to do like these strongman things. And so after the session, they do deadlifts and I just walked in and jumped on the deadlift. I think it was like 220 on the bar and I ended up doing like 6 reps. And he's like, where the fuck has this come from? I'm like, honestly, don't know. It's just something that I just can do. But I've got no upper body strength. My upper body is a fucking...
You've had a few shoulder, but like your body fucking changed in like that, when that TARS thing kicked off. It fucking changed.
That 2-year period, I reckon I went from, I was about like 98 kilos to 112, 111 kilos.
It was fucking insane. And then all of a sudden you were popping up at Shoot Shield.
Yeah.
Smoking people, running sort of 60, 70. And I was like, I need a DNA test on this guy because it's not the same person I went to school was doing with. It's a different guy.
Yeah.
You start training with John Lucia, you're going to get strong pretty quickly, to be fair. He was a fucking animal.
He's a gun, man. He was a good player. He's fucking so scary.
You got time for some fan questions, Jeb?
Yeah, Chubby, also, just on that, do you remember how fucking strong Tetra was? He's still like squatting 200 like ass to grass, like, and he's fucking 33, 34 years of age.
Hey, when he first came into the Shoot Shield, he was terrifying. But I'd argue if you got John Lucia at hooker, Sitaleki Tamani in the second row, Kane Doug,
big pack.
Yeah, he was good anyway, but you had those guys to it, and I remember killing people.
Tetra as a young man was particularly strong, man. Like he sort of changed. Obviously, everyone changes over time, but he was. I just remember his legs and his arms, and he was. I remember all the stories about him in the TARS, putting up kilos. So I just fucking stayed.
I saw him do like a 240 front squat, like perfectly once. I was like, you and I are not the same, brother.
Different humans, bro.
I love the fact that he's still playing. He's one of the greatest humans on planet Earth, I reckon.
He is.
Question for you both from a Mr. T. Cummins. Maybe you can sit this one out if you want, Jed. Can you and Jed discuss how prevalent are PEDs in high-grade club rugby? Might be a stupid question. I was just interested.
No, it's not stupid. I reckon the test, I reckon Asada have been to Eastwood 8 times in 11 years, maybe. Probably less. I'd say I reckon it's probably more prevalent among lower graders. From my experience.
Definitely. Or maybe not PEDs. No, maybe not PEDs.
No, I'm talking about PEDs. I mean, there was one particular person who, I hope we're on the same page here, got a ban from a club this side of the bridge for PEDs, playing first grade. But in general, I'd say it's not super common at first grade. It's more common sort of the guys who are playing socially and trying to get really jacked. But
I think it's rarer that.
Yeah, no, go. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's rarer than it's common.
Oh, it's rarer than it's common. I think Holloway will be able to attest. I was sort of never there enough. How much you get tested, like in Australia, we get tested.
And what's the process, Jed? I've never been drug tested before.
Mate, you'd be stupid to try PEDs or whatever steroids and be a professional player. You're gonna get caught. Like, it's just plain and simple. But in terms of process, you turn up one day and they're all there, and they've either got your photo or got your name on a list, or they don't. And
there's no getting around it.
Yeah, they follow you in every part of everywhere you go for the rest of the day. They sit there and follow you until you need to piss, and they sit there when you piss. They sit there and watch it come out.
Yeah, it's really hard to go to the toilet when they're doing it, and they're all old. Why doesn't anyone young do it?
I've got a great story about a former Wallaby just before you go, Jed. He got on the list one night, Mr. Whatever. We need a sample. So he followed the guy around all night, and he just refused to take a piss. But apparently he was like pissing in the shower. The guy was watching him. He went and took a shit. The guy was watching him. He did it all on purpose just so this guy had to watch him do all that stuff.
It's a very, very strange way to do that. Oh, look,
well, you got to amuse yourself somehow, don't you?
I'll just add, the best players always got tested the most, particularly at the tournament that shall remain nameless. Holloway, Roche, these guys got tested. I remember Roche writing a letter to Asada or whoever because he was getting tested so much. They got tested. I was tested once in 10 years. That gives you an indicator of the performance gap here. Holloway was getting tested every game, every fucking game.
And I was never tested, so. All right. This one's quite a common question for Mr. Holloway, and it's come from several players at the Waratahs. And it's to do with what's wrong with his toes. That's one of the questions. Does he have the ugliest feet in Super Rugby? That's another one. And there's a couple of others along similar lines. Should we throw them under the bus? It's Tane, Edmund, and Carlo.
Look, Tane's got massive issues, so we can put him aside. Tane, bro. Tane. He's got issues, the kid. Jed.
So does Carlos.
Carlo definitely. Tane, I actually like him. I think he's quite a good character, but he's got some interesting stories about you, Jed. He's got some big raps on you as a coach, which is quite
well, that's surprising.
Yeah.
We need to drug test him.
Yeah,
we'll be cutting that out of the show.
He says he wants to get picked for Eastwood this year.
Well, are you going to respond to the allegations about your feet?
My feet? Mate, I can't say whether they're the ugliest feet in Super Rugby or not, but I'll admit that I have some pretty fucking horrendous looking feet.
Top 10?
I reckon. Although Wycliffe Palu had some of the most minging feet that I've seen.
Trotters? His trotters weren't.
Yeah, his trotters. But like, you play rugby for as long as us, you wear boots all the time and they get fucking trodden on. They just continually fall off and they don't grow back the same every time, which is disgusting.
What happened to my hair?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Your poor feet, Gillespie, having to carry your body around. Mr. Ruan Henry, big fan of the show, another great human being, goes, what does he think of guys shoulder charging in non-contact training days?
One of the young.
Yes, go on. What do you think has happened there?
I think one of the young whippersnappers has
too eager.
Whippersnapped his way to pissing off all the senior players, if I had to guess.
Oh, well, it's like we have a big emphasis on contact days. So like our Tuesday, Friday are big contact days. And then the other is like around speed and detail and stuff like that. We're going through like our goal line kickoff strategy, and a player is just getting it kicked too consistently, is trying to run it back. And it's bodies in front, not two-handed touch. Anyway, one player gets angry. One young player gets angry that he's running through the line every time, which there is always that guy who does like get tagged or get bodies in front and continue to run 5 meters. I didn't think he was doing that, but he thought he was doing that. He lines him up rugby league style, no arm technique or anything, like just blatant shoulder charge. And then I just walked over to him like, what the fuck are you thinking? That's a yellow card. And then he come back at me. And I'm like, it's just a dumb play. Like, just fucking think about it.
Was this last week? Was I there for that?
Maybe, yeah. I think you were.
Look, I think I was there for that. I know exactly what was happening. The guy was charging. He was taking in his stride, but it was part of the drill. And I hate to be like a Confucius fucking character, but that's why you need senior players like yourself to be like, mate, can you put your shoulder away, Shane Webke, for a second, please? And he'll probably be pissed off for the second, but later on he'll be like,
oh yeah, he's sweet after. But it's just like, in this day and age, with fucking the amount of cards that get handed out, if we do that, we're just going to get yellow carded every game. So I was just highlighting the fact that that was the case, and with a bit more of a spray in it. But at the end of the day, it's all just a bit of fun at training, and you fuck around a fair bit, and you got to find a way to enjoy these things, you know. And I got picked on when I was a young kid, and I like to do it a little bit now as well.
100%.
Hey, Jed, I've actually got a question for you, because when you asked if me and Carlo Tizzano actually like each other or not, what was evident there? Because I talked to him about it. He's like, we weren't even bad yesterday when you.
I don't know. Someone you were doing after training finished, training then didn't finish, and you were absolutely deleting each other on the tackle bags, and he got torched by someone. I don't know who it was, which is a bad sign. And then you were like, get that into your Carlo, you fucking dog, or something like that. And I went, what's going on here? I was very confused. I was just trying to figure it out.
Have you met him personally?
No.
He is one. He's crazy, but in a good way.
So for the 2 weeks I stayed at Melbourne in 2018, he was my roommate. We were living in a church, some random Fijian church together. And I think that's a good way of saying it. He's a good human being. I've got a lot of time for him, but he's a nutbag as well. Yeah. So I think that's a good way of saying it. He wants to be an MMA fighter. And every time I post something about jiu-jitsu, he's like, let's spar. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm sparring you. Yeah. A Mr. Holman 999 asks, do you miss 314 Port Hacking Road? And what's the best lesson you learned from the culture in Japan? Not a bad question.
He's followed up a layup bad question with a very good question.
Duncan, as you know, those early South days, if some rental properties that Southern Districts put boys in, if those walls could talk, the stories that would tell. Like, it would be crazy.
I saw some things there. I imagine you'd spent a lot more time there than me, but fuck.
Maybe we do cut that bit out, but it's that time was a wild part of our journey as people, for sure. And so was Japan. Japan was a part of my journey, more responsible than those younger days at 314 Port Hacking Road. Those days was purely led by, mate, speaking of Holman 999 and Gibbo, one day there, they both got into a punch on where, like, I think one of them pulled a knife on the other one. And me and Richard, the other guy living there, was like, we got to get out of here. So we left. Anyway, we got back. One of the cars was gone. So I'm like, something bad's happened here. And they've just, one's fled or something. We walk in the house, no one's there. Call up Gibbo. And Gibbo, we're like, where are you? And he's like, I'm at breakfast. Oh, with who? And he's like, oh, Jake. I'm like, what the fuck? He just pulled a knife on him. Like, just, and now you're sitting at breakfast together. It's just like, those days were just, they made no sense.
I thought you were going to tell the story about Alex chasing him down the street. Do you know that one?
No, I do not know that one.
Oh, we can't tell that story. But You could do a whole podcast series on Alex Gibbons stories. The man is a special human being. This question comes from a Mr. C. Nay, and it's quite a serious question. So I hope that's okay. 21 cards were given across autumn nations, 17 to Southern Hemisphere teams. Do you think that referees are generally biased or are not as dialed in on the rules here? So when we travel, our expectations are different to how they officiate. It's for both here. Do you think they referee the game differently here than they do in Europe?
Yes, definitely. If you've watched those French referees trot around in the top 14, man, they'll do their little adjudication, and then they'll go to the thing, and anyone who's touched anyone gets a card. I think they're more conservative the way they play.
So you don't think refs are biased? You tend to be a little bit of a conspiracy theorist with these kind of things.
I don't think they're biased. I think the laws are all fucked. But I don't think they're biased necessarily. There's been the Wallabies, I will say, have been particularly unlucky on the cards they've copped / not copped. But apologies.
Tinder going off.
That was
Grinder.
Gibson. Yeah, no, look, but I don't think it's a bias at all. It's just the way that it's like Holloway said before. It's like it was easy to get a card 5 years ago. Now I think you can genuinely not know what you get a card for. I think we're at that point where like Jed could clean someone out in a ruck and they'll slow it down and send him off. So I don't think it's a bias thing. I think that are you guys adapting to that at training, Jed? Like you guys getting across that?
Yeah, there's definitely areas of the game which you need to be more cautious than you used to. Like cleaning a guy out. When Czech was first in, he was just like, if someone was laying in the way, fucking smash him. If you hit a guy off the ball now, you're going to get a yellow card, or there's going to be a consequence for some of that. So like the detail that goes into your breakdown technique and stuff like that. Even with Cronny, he'd be like, stick your head. If they got a pilfering the ball, stick your head under their head and pop it out. If you do that, if you go head to head or anything like that, you're going to get a yellow card. Even if they've got poor technique and they've got their head up, if anything touches, another person's head, it's going to be a yellow or red card.
So, Jed, if someone's got a good position on ball, you got a guy who's who's on ball really, really well, how the fuck are you meant to clean him out?
It's hard to say, but the old croc roll, I think, is the best technique.
I thought that was super illegal.
Hit him side on and then square up as
long as you don't get their head.
Yeah,
can you hit him straight in the spine, or is that dirty as well? Like, where does you draw the line? How the fuck do you clean someone out?
Yeah,
it's a good question, isn't it?
It's a great question. You're asking the wrong bloke.
Well, we're coaches, Jed. We're coaches, Jed. We should probably know.
Under my regime, there will be no rucks.
All right, we've nearly soaked up an hour of Mr. Holloway's time. Anything else, Jed? Either way, questions for us, statements, anything? Are you playing golf today or something?
Me?
Yeah, you're wearing a.
I'm just running a bit low on my t-shirts, so just did the washing for the week. Went down to Era for mum's 60th over the weekend, and it was so I had a bit of washing to catch up on.
Definitely my favourite person banned by the Waratah's Facebook page. So happy birthday to her. I got one final question. You said you're somewhat not thinking about it. Have you ruled out the gold jersey completely? Because I haven't ruled it out for you.
No, it's definitely not something that I've ruled out. I'm just saying it's not at the forefront of my mind. I'm excited about getting back here, excited to try playing my best footy. And I know if I play my best footy, it's something that can be well in the picture, no doubt. Just say the likeliness of it with like it being such a young squad, and it's just not something I'm going to hang.
Yeah.
All my fucking things on. It's not going to determine if I it's not going to determine my success of returning is if I get a gold jersey or not. It's the other things like building a culture and the success of the TARS that's going to determine whether this return has been successful or not.
Yeah, if you hang your hat on someone waiting for someone to pick you, you're gonna have a sad career, whether at any level. So I think that's a fucking good way to look at it, man.
Yeah.
Well, yes, something that took me a long time to work out, and I really only worked it out when I started coaching, is you see a lot of players who are just outcome based, like they want to be in first grade, they want to play Super Rugby, and then when they don't get it, they just cave in. Whereas the way you're attacking it's a lot more mature and smart way.
Well, something that Cronny sort of ingrained into us over there is just be process driven over outcome. Because you can't always control the outcome, but you can control your process and your own way of doing things. And I think, it's something throughout my whole career, I was always very outcome based, and, it just didn't always go to plan. And when it didn't go to plan, I faltered sometimes. And now it's just like being consistent in my process and try doing that as best as I can.
Where are you living at the moment?
Berry Meadow, mate.
Where's that?
Down in Wollongong.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not nice enough distance away from Cronulla and all the craziness going on up here.
That's one thing that was definitely discussed is like, I'm excited to go see the boys and like rip in, but I'm like, if it's every weekend and stuff like that, it's just, Cronulla is a crazy place.
There's a lot of Thursday nights lately. It's the old go out for dinner, get home at 3 a.m. trick. We'll have to do it. We'll have to do it soon, but
we definitely will.
So you're playing a game next week, is that right?
Yeah.
We've
got an internal trial, and then we've got a trial against the Rebels, and then we got Christmas break, and then we're basically after that Christmas break, we're into it.
So you got an interesting thing where you're playing a couple of the club teams. Is that right? Pretty sure you're playing like Newcastle and maybe West Harbour in a joint trial, like half a game, half a game.
Yeah.
And then there's like a best of at the end of that, or like a training session or something.
Yeah. Is there the Shoot Shield Superstars, did that fall through or whatever it is?
Nah, that fell through,
mate. Fell through. Oh, well, I do have one request. If somehow Michael Isley does get on the field in that Rebels game, would you be able to choke the life out of him by any chance?
Mate, yes. He's one of the rare. What is with Eastwood and rare forwards in particular?
I agree.
Well, unfortunately, they're all younger than me, and they've all had to live under my rareness as well. So
you've attracted a new bunch of them as well just recently.
I'm no comment, but Michael has been suckling on my teeth for many years now. Mate, he's finally spread his own wings.
He's another forward who's fucking fast, man.
He's good.
He's very fast, and he played 3rd 15 at school, 16 East. So he's not quite your journey, but something a little bit similar. Developed late.
One of my most fondest recent Eastwood memories is he was talking a big game to me on Instagram before, and you guys pumped us. It was in 2019, and then I chipped and chased him at Eastwood. I don't know if you remember it, but he would definitely.
Unfortunately, it's not the only time he chipped and chased a side that I played in. Probably my most vivid memory is you absolutely torching Mick Snowden, and that being a very sad time for Eastwood in general.
There's definitely been some great Eastwood Southern Districts battles.
Ridiculous.
We seem to win the ones that didn't matter, and you guys won the ones that did matter.
Exactly.
Oh, I remember Holloway coming up to in that major semi, or maybe the one before the major semi, and it was like 21-0. And you fucking said something to me on the way past, and I was like, "Oh no, we're fucked." We're fucked. Oh,
we didn't even land a punch 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
I remember after that uni game, Jed. Remember how I think it was Geordie? No, who was it? It was Vola kicked it at the bell. I remember exactly where I was standing and how I was feeling, and I remember it was maybe 1 a.m. Might have been in 2230, standing next to Tim Metcher that Sunday, celebrating, of course. And I think looking back now, that's probably where we lost that game.
We played
Yeah.
the grand final and celebrated like we won. We're happy to make the grand final.
It's such a cliche to say like a team's play the grand final, but like we weren't out on the piss, unfortunately. Like nothing had happened. And when I saw you guys, when that fucking kick went over in an epic match, great to see Uni out. There was that feeling where it's like, fuck, it's gonna be hard to get up that big twice in a row. It's gonna be fucking hard, man.
Yeah.
We
All
got
right,
we
lads,
got
I'm gonna go.
No,
Catch you, buddy.
Thank you very much, mate.
No worries. Thank you guys. It was fun.
We'll see you soon, mate.
Hooroo.
Catch ya.
Chubby.
Yo.
Can given how fucking actually good that podcast was, definitely cut out my bit from the start.
Hold on one sec. I'll just